Hello, welcome everyone. I'm excited that you're all here. I propose that we start. So this is a webinar on, it's a demo actually on Ativo Agile Programs for Jira. And I will start maybe by presenting myself. So I'm Edwin Rossi, I'm the founder of Ativo.io. I have more than 10 years of experience with program change and project management, and I've started in the more classical methodologies like Prince2 and MSP, and today I've shifted more and more towards Agile and Scrum methodologies, and now I'm a certified SAFe Advanced Scrum Master. So it's maybe interesting if you could also share if you have experience with managing programs, if you have experience with SAFe, the Scaled Agile framework, if you're already using Jira, you can let me know in the chat. And there's already a first question. Will it be recorded? Yes, it will be recorded, and you will get a link to the recording after this session. And you will also get a copy of the handouts at the end of this session, and I will also send it per email. Thanks, Rune. Good question. So let me know if you've already used Jira, if you're managing programs. If you have experience with SAFe, you can post it in the chat. So what will we cover today? We will start with looking at the configuration of programs, teams, and periods in Ativo Agile Programs for Jira. That's a plugin to manage the planning of programs, to manage and see the progress of a program by using lean visuals. So we'll start with that configuration part very quickly, and then we'll move to the good part, and we'll plan the program, look at the features, look at the dependencies. We'll also look at commitments. That's something that's also part of SAFe, and issues and risk. I think that's quite important as well. And after that, we'll also take a look at the progress review. How can we follow programs easily? Which visuals can we use that are meaningful? So all that will take less than 45 minutes. And so already have some responses in the chat. So Rune has worked with SAFe, great, used Jira, you're a SPC and have a good knowledge of Jira, great. Hendrik is saying, I use Jira every day as a PO product owner. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. So before we dive into the demo, maybe let's take also a look at the importance of program planning, because that's something that can take quite some time. Some people are then asking, yeah, but if we're an agile organization, we want to promote change, we don't want to just follow a plan, so why is this planning important? We want to promote human interaction, we don't want to follow a process and a tool. That's all part of the Agile Manifesto. So why do we need this program planning? Well, if you're managing a program with 100 persons, for very practical reasons, you will need a minimal amount of structure, plans, process, and tools to be efficient and effective. And the message here that I want to share with you is that we want to do that planning in the right way, with a maximum of human interaction, with the necessary but minimum amount of documentation. We don't want to write a book like we've used to in waterfall projects. I want to create a plan that's open for change, and that's the idea behind the plugin that we'll see later in the demo. So if we do that program planning in a proper way, we can see some organizational benefits. The first is that you have a better understanding between the IT and the business, because when companies are switching to Agile, Scrum methodologies, or SAFe, I often hear that there is some feedback from management or from the business that says, okay, now we have these Kanban boards, okay, that's good. We have these system demos, yeah, that's very good. But what we're missing is the big picture. We don't really know where we are. We don't really know where we will be in a few months. So yeah, that's them bothering them, and that's something that's a good program planning can mitigate. But again, we want to be agile. We will not create a program planning for the next year, but for the next sprints, of course, we want to create it. The second benefit is that you can have a faster delivery if you handle risks and issues upfront, if you handle them properly. And if you do that in the program planning, if you also look at those, you can mitigate them while you still have time on your side. So That's also a benefit that you have. The third benefit is that you can avoid frustration when you manage dependencies. Dependencies, cross-team dependencies. And I also think that's often a challenge when you work with multiple teams or multiple projects, because even with SAFE, who promotes dedicated teams, at some point you will still always have a cross-team dependency, because for whatever reason there's maybe an expertise in one team that needs to be used by another team, and if you change the teams, whatever configuration that you take, you will always find at least some cross-team dependencies. And when you have these dependencies, at some point you might need to take a decision if time is if there's pressure on the timing, because if the team has to work on its own stories and on cross-team dependencies with other teams, then yeah, a decision should be taken to say, okay, should we work on our own stories or should we work on the stories of the other team? And if the other team is unblocked, if the first team is not resolving that dependency, that can create some frustration. So it's important to visualize it. SAFE clearly promotes the program board where you add the chords with all these the cross-team dependencies. So that's a benefit that you have then as well. And lastly, I think it's also important, and it's also a clear benefit that you have happier teams and more motivated teams if you do proper program planning, because it's already a long time known. Friedrich Herzberg, he did a study on that already in 1968. He published a paper called One More Time, How Do You Motivate Employees? And it was sold over 1 million reprints. And in that paper, he explains that if you responsibilize people, if you give them recognition, those are the most important factors to motivate people. Not just the team building. The real importance of the motivation is in responsibilizing people, sorry, and giving them recognition. So if you let all the members in the program, so all 100, if you have a program of 100 persons, all the QA experts, all the business experts, all the developers, if you let them all participate in this program planning, they will get that recognition, they will feel responsibilized, and that will give a boost to their motivation, that will increase performance, and that's good for everyone. So I think those are 4 important benefits that we can have when we use and we do a proper program planning the agile way. In the meantime, in the chat, we also have Mark, who says he's using Jira daily as a Scrum Master. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing that as well. So let's take a look at the demo then, the settings of the demo. So today we will examine a program, we call it Program Blue, that has 4 teams that are participating in it. So we have Team Lion, Team Rabbit, Team Horse, and Team Owl. The program, it has a feature list, a list of all the important business objectives, if I can say it like that, that program should deliver. And we will select a subset of that and we plan it in the next period. And that period will have 7 sprints. I added 7 because yeah, it's a nice number, but I think some companies, they have program increments or periods, whatever you call it, that are shorter, that are 3-4 sprints long. 7, that's already quite long, but at least we will see in the demo that it's possible. So we'll use Jira software and we'll use the plugin Ativo Agile Programs for Jira. I will go to the demo now. So I'm switching screens. Voila. Okay, so let's maybe first take a look at the configuration, the teams we were talking about. So we have, for each team, we have a separate Jira project here. That's not an obligation. Some teams, they can share projects in Jira. That's up to the organization to see how they prefer it. But in this case, so we have for Team Lion, we have a Kanban board, a Scrum board, sorry, and we also have a backlog with the different sprints that are visible. So whoever is already using Jira, this is very common ground for it. This is nothing new, but for those who are not using Jira, you see here the sprints. Those are the big blocks. In the sprints, you have the different stories. So we have sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, sprint 4, 5, 6, and 7, the 7 sprints in our period. And we also have a backlog with stories, just 2. Usually it's usually a lot more, but for this demo, we have limited it to 2. So every team has its own backlog and Kanban, Scrum board, so my apologies. And at the feature level, we also have created a Kanban with all the features. And Jira, it's a tool that's already existing for over 15 years. So it's it doesn't really know the notion of a feature like we like to call it in a safe environment. So in Jira, what we like to call features are actually epics. So in this demo, I'm using features and epics as a synonym, simply because of the technical reasons in Jira. So what you see here is a Kanban board with all the features that we like to plan. And you can add in this Kanban board multiple columns. For example, you could add a column to say, okay, we're ready for the next BI planning, but that's completely flexible, up to you. So that's the feature list and the feature Kanban board. So now if we click, we'll click again at the top level, we're here in Jira on the Programs tab. Then actually we're inside the Ativo Agile Programs for Jira plugin. What you see here at the center actually is a wheel, an improvement wheel of the major steps that we are taking in each iteration. So we're creating a program, we will create a period or select a period, we'll prepare ourselves, we'll plan in the stories, and we'll do the delivery. And we'll see that just in a minute. And at the left, you see a navigation bar with the program and period. For those who know we're using SAFe, period here is a synonym of a program increment. So it's the 7 sprints that we were talking about earlier. We have the different screens here at the left, and then at the bottom we have some configuration tabs and some quick links. So if I'm now selecting the program blue we're talking about, the system will say, okay, yeah, we know that program, and there's 4 teams configured in that program. I'll take a look at the configuration just in a minute with you. And we also have one period that is defined, and there we have the 7 sprints that we were talking about earlier. So now that we've selected the program and the period, the tool gives already a few numbers, metrics about the number of features that are planned in, the number of stories that are planned in, the number of features and stories that are closed. And if we click on those links, we'll get to the actual screens that we'll discover soon. So if now I click here on program, so in the configuration, of the program, you will see that a program, as mentioned before, it has a title, it has a feature list, and it has the different teams that are part of it. So we were talking about the 4 teams: Team Lion, Team Rabbit, Team Horse, and Team Owl. And you see here, actually, I just clicked very quickly on the configuration of those teams. So here you see how these teams are then related to the Jira project. And we can even add some filters if teams are sharing the same Jira project. That's possible by using a filter. So I will quickly go over this configuration. So that's about the setting of the program, and then for the period we also have a screen to configure the period. So each period has a name, it has a key, it's a unique key, like in Jira projects also have unique keys. And then we have the different sprints of the period. So we have sprint 1 till 7, and we can label the sprint. So if you want to call this sprint 1, for example, we can save it. And you will see later that the first sprint will be called sprint 1 and not just 1. So that's for the configuration. And now I would like to take you to take a look at the most interesting part. I think that's the planning, the actual planning of the program. So I clicked at the left, in the left navigation bar on plan, and what we see here is actually a digital program board. So what you're looking at is what you see here are the different teams. So we have Team Lion, with the different sprints that are team line. So remember that I renamed one to sprint one, so you see it here that it's being used. And we have Team Rabbit as well. We have Team Horse, and we have Team Owl that is as well present. At the left, you have the features that are not yet assigned to any team. And there's also an unplanned column for actually features that are not yet planned in a sprint, but for which we already know which team is in the lead. So that's quite useful the days before the PI planning, before the program planning, to say, okay, this feature actually it's team line who is taking it up, and they will prepare the dependencies, for example, take a look at the dependencies for that feature, and during the PI planning itself, they will be responsible to plan it in one of the sprints. And planning in a feature, it's simply done by dragging and dropping the feature to a specific sprint, and you can also switch teams. So we can say, okay, yeah, it was not team line. They're already quite busy. It's Team Horse who will take the lead over that feature. So then it drops here in this column. We can add features quite simply. So we had a Kanban board with a large number of features. Obviously, we don't want to plan all the features in the whole PI. That would be that's not the idea. We want to take a subset of those features and plan it for a short PI in a short period of time. So let's say that we will add still a few more features that are candidates to be planned. So I've selected them and they appear here on the board, and they can as well be planned in, let's say we put feature 16 in the lead of Team Owl, and after a while they plan it in a sprint and they can drag and drop it. What we can also do is create a feature if we, during the PI planning, say, okay, maybe we have to split a feature or create a feature. So I can simply say, choose a title. So this is a manually created feature. I add it and it appears here in the unassigned, and I can immediately plan it in as well. So by doing that, by creating a feature, what's actually happening is actually that in the system, a new epic is created, and it's visible in the Kanban board as well. So you see it's already immediately visible here on the Kanban, the manually created feature that we've just created. So that's about the features. Let's take a look as well at the stories, dependency stories. Yeah, what I don't, maybe for those who are not using Jira, so the way, a question from Henrik, what happens in the overview if a feature epic will take more than one sprint to complete? Yeah, good question. What safe means when you plan a feature in a specific sprint, obviously a feature that's something quite big, it takes multiple sprints to complete it. So it's very rarely that you start and end it in the same sprint. Then it would normally be a story. So what we mean when we plan it in a sprint, it means that all the stories that are under it, they're in the sprints before or in the same sprint, but that could be risky. And the feature, it means it's ending, it will be delivered in the sprint. When we want to be agile, we don't really want to have a lot of administration about when a feature started to be planned in. We want to, what's really, I think, most important for the business is to know when it will be delivered. So that's actually, that means that the feature will be delivered. And under that feature, you have different stories. So if you go back to the, for example, the backlog of one of the teams, they have here a storyline, story one, that's linked to that feature. And they're actually planning in those stories in detail. I get a small pop-up here. That's because the sprint is already active. That's standard Jira behavior. The teams are simply planning in the stories in a sprint. And when they've planned in all the stories in the sprint, they know, okay, the feature, it will be ready, for example, for feature one, it will be ready for sprint 4, for example. So I will come back to the dependencies, cross-team dependencies, because that's quite important. So what's a cross-team dependency? It's simply a feature for which one team is in the lead that has stories of another team that are contributing to it. So we can take an example here. We have, for example, feature 4 from that's in the lead by Team Rabbit, and it has a dependency, or it's being dependent on actually a story that's taken up by Team Lion. So we have the Lion Tree story that's contributing to feature 4. So if we would open that story, we would see here as an epic link, that's also standard Jira, that it's linked to that feature. And the system, that's quite nice, automatically can detect dependencies. So it can detect and say, okay, this story, it's in another team as that feature. And if I would move an epic to another team, I will do it here, for example. So I will move this feature to another team. The dependency story will now disappear because the story and the feature are in the same team. So you see that it disappears, and you also see that the system detects, or the tool detects, okay, now we have that feature in Team Lion, and the story we were talking about, that's no longer a dependency, but hey, we have stories in another team, from another team, that are also contributing to this feature, and those are then dependencies. So when you're moving around features, the system will update the cross-team dependencies depending on where the epic is. We can also create a dependency manually. For example, let's say we have, we'll take, that's all owned by Team Lion. We have this feature 4, and we have Lion Story 1, and they're both in a different team. So that's, if we add it, it will create the dependency for us. So you see Lion Story 1, it's now also linked to feature 4. It's contributing to feature 4, and it's a cross-team dependency. We can even create a story on the fly. So let's stay with, what about when a story has a dependency to other stories? Well, the system wants to focus actually on the cross-team dependencies between features and stories. So dependencies between stories and stories are not really shown here in this overview. Good question, Rune. So let's create a new story. So I will create a manually created story. I will select a team. Let's put it in Team Horse, and let's put it in sprint number 3. So what it created now here is a manually created story, and it also linked it as a cross-team dependency to feature 4. And if we would go to Team Horse, and I would refresh it, you see that the manually created story, it's also visible in the backlog of the team in sprint 3, the 3rd sprint. And if we would move, for example, that from sprint 3 to sprint 5, if the team would say, okay, we cannot deliver it in sprint 3, but in sprint 5, if then we go back to the board and we refresh it, you will see it will move from sprint 3 to sprint 5. So it's dynamically, it's linked together with all the different boards and different Kanban systems that you're using. And a few weeks ago, a new client from California, they were using the tool Ativo Agile Programs for Jira, and they were working with in a program of more than 100 persons. They were working worldwide in different time zones. So they were using the tool, and they were being synchronized. So it was a good success. I had good feedback on that. So teams that can use their backlog and they can use the program board, and they can be synchronized. So that's what I wanted to show you about the features and dependencies on the high level view. But if we go a bit further into detail, so I will click on the detail tab at the top, and I will also remove the chords just for a second. It actually shows more information about the features and the cross-team dependencies. So if we stick with the feature, what we see here first is a story point. If you leave it open blank, it's actually the default option. It will simply take the sum of the stories that are under it. We then have a field to indicate if a story is committed or stretch uncommitted, and that's used later as well in the metrics. And we can also flag a story, and I think that's quite useful as well. If you want, as a product owner or as a Scrum Master, Mark, for example, or Henrik as a PO, if you want to say, okay, or the team wants to say, okay, this story, it has a particular risk, and it's under control. We think the risk is amber. We could simply add a flag, an amber flag, and say, okay, we have an issue with a new technology, which I will call XIZ 2020, for example. So the team can tag features, and they also can do the same with dependency, cross-team dependency stories. And yeah, I think that's quite useful for effective meetings, because you don't want to talk about everything that goes well. You as a product owner, as a Scrum Master, as a release train engineer or program manager, you want to focus usually, especially in the follow-up meetings, in the Scrums or the ArtSync, you want to follow up on the issues and risks. So I think it's quite important that they get raised and they get treated properly. So that's what I wanted to show about the program board. If now we go to the progress, I will first show you, and there's two options. There's a progress board total for the whole program, or there's one per team. I will show the one per team. So I clicked on it, and actually what you're seeing here is an overview, a dashboard per team, and there's one for each team, so I can quickly navigate through it. So if we take a look at the dashboard of Team Line, we see there's three parts of it. The top left with the summary, the risk and the issues, the top right with the metrics, and at the bottom, the different sprints with the features and cross-team dependencies. So in the top left, what we see here is an overview of the different features and the colors that are given to it, and the cross-team dependencies, and also the issues and risks that are raised. So we see it here, highlighted it, I changed it, I added X, Y, Z 2020 to it, and it's also visible here in this dashboard for your attention then, or for discussion, quick discussion in Scrums or ArtSync. At the bottom, you see the different sprints. Again, I renamed sprint one, I1 to sprint one. That's why we see here sprint one. And you see two different types of boxes. The first one with the donut chart is the features, so what we see here is the description of the feature, the story points that are under it, from all the stories that are under it, the tag if it was committed or a stretch uncommitted, or if it was extra, for example. That's a tag that's used if later on you add features to the period, to the program increment. And we also see the baseline. That's actually the feature, the sprint in which it was originally planned. So for sprint 7, you see that it was planned in sprint 4, but because there's stories under it that's already planned in a later sprint, the feature will move along and will be visible then in that later sprint. What you also see are the color codes on each of those features, and if you hover over it, we get the risk or issue that was highlighted. And then we have the dependencies as well, the cross-team dependencies. Those are not here visible with chords because it would be a bit messy with all those extra metrics and charts. So that's why we've chosen to say, okay, we simply show the story. So we have here story line 10. And actually the feature it is attached to. So this story from Team Line is attached to feature 5, which is owned by Team Rabbit. And then at the top right, we see the metrics. So horizontally, we have the different sprint, vertically the story points. And because we haven't closed the sprint yet, so this is what you see at the end of the PI session, at the program increment session, you simply see the total amount of story points that are planned in, and the part of which that is committed. So that's the purple line is the amount of story points that is committed, and the blue line is the total amount. And if you click on it on a point, you will get the data that's behind, and that's quite useful. If someone says, yeah, why is it 14.5 story points? Well, if you click on it, you get that data. So what I will simulate now is I will go to the board of team line. I will close a few sprints and close a few stories. So we will simulate now that we're after the PI, the teams are delivering. So let's say for the second sprint, so they closed all their stories. We'll go back to the first sprint. They also closed their stories, and the third sprint, yeah, they didn't close it yet. If I go to the settings now, to period, and I will close the first 2 sprints, we will see a few changes in the dashboard. So coming back to the dashboard per team, what we see, okay, those stories that have been delivered, so you see there's strike 2, and what you also see, because they're being delivered, that the features are also being delivered. So you see here for that feature 2, there's 2 out of a total of 8 story points delivered, and for feature 1, there's 1 out of a total of 1.5 story points delivered. So you see that visible here. And what you see here in the metrics are a few other lines. I will maybe just disable a few ones to start to make it a bit more simple. So the blue line we already talked about, that's the total, and the black line, that's the actual line. So again, if you click on it, you get the details. And then there is a gray line. So that's the linear forecasts. That shows, okay, if the team works on the same velocity, this is where they will end. So yeah, it's looking pretty good, this chart, because the team will probably deliver their stories around sprint 5. And there's 2 other colors as well, the green and the amber one. The green one, that's the actually extrapolation with the fastest sprint velocity, so that's the optimistic case. And the amber one, that's with the lowest sprint velocity, so that's the pessimistic case. So this gives for the program managers, the release train engineers, the business, this gives also the level of certainty, shows the level of certainty or region where a team is likely to deliver their stories. So that's what I wanted to show you for the metrics. And then going back at the overview, you will see that as well here, that you will see that the stories are being closed, the sprints are being closed. So 2 out of 7 sprints have been closed. And I will also click at the total line. So this gives the total for the whole program, all the issues and risks that are visible in the program, the metrics for that program. We haven't closed many stories, so you see that it's not looking quite good for that program, but at least it's visible. And you see as well the features that are part of the program, when they're planned to be or scheduled to be delivered, and the progress on them. So we clearly see that overview here in that total tab. So that's what I wanted to show you, the program board and the progress board. And I'm wondering if you have any questions, you can ask them in the chat. Let's see if there's other question that I didn't answer yet. I give you a bit of time to type your question, of course. What I can maybe show in the meantime, I will switch screens. If just a comment from Rune, very useful tool. I'm looking forward to get a link to the recording to share with colleagues. Well, thank you very much, Rune. I will share it. Question from Rake. Can you please explain again the forecast chart? I thought the example 1 would have taken you out of the planet and date. Good question. So I will go back to the screen. So you were talking about example 1. So this was this example. I will remove a few colors. So what we see here actually is a burn-up chart, and the black line is a number of actuals. So when the black line touches the blue line, it means at that moment all the stories that were planned in have been delivered. So that's actually what we're looking at the cross section of the blue line and the black line. And here that cross section is in sprint 5. So it means if the team delivers 2 story points in the first sprint, 3.5 in the second, so we get to 5.5 story points, and it will continue to add 2-3 story points every sprint. After 3 more sprints, we get around 15 story points, which is the total amount of stories that are planned in. So actually what we're looking at in a burn-up chart is a cross section between the total and the actual line. Good question. Question from Hendrik, can you easily extend the program with more sprints if the program is delayed? Yeah, it's not something that SAFe would advise you, but technically it's possible. So what we can simply do in the period is to say, okay, yeah, we add, I clicked on add sprint. We add sprint number 8, 8 extra sprints, I can call it. The only thing you will have to do then is to make sure that each team also has in their board a sprint number 8. And then link them here. I will not do it in the demo because it can take a bit of time. But to answer your question, yes, that's certainly possible. Although again, SAFe advises against that. The statement from an agile coach, a SAFe coach, would be, yeah, let's close the PI and learn our lessons and plan better next program increment. Good question, thanks. Because yeah, for those who are not using SAFe, what we're actually doing is we're looking at a program increment or a set of sprints at each time. So for example, 1st of January, we could do a program planning. I will plan in all the sprints for, like, for example, 2 months. So for January and February. And then 1st of March, we again do a program planning and we plan in sprints of March and April. And so we're, with Agile, we don't want to over plan. We don't want to plan too far ahead because we want to be Agile, and we want to be able to change our plan very easily. And if you plan too far ahead, yeah, you're putting a lot of effort in that planning, while if your business has different requirements, if there's a delay or whatever, actually that planning is not valid anymore. So that's why in SAFe we're always focusing on just a few sprints of planning ahead, and when that period is finished, we start a new one. Where can I get pricing information from, Rake? We have a portfolio size of 300 people, around 60 teams. I have to take this to my leaders and they will ask about pricing. Thank you very much, Rake. That's a good question. So if you go to our website, I will send the link as well. You will find the pricing there. So there is a pricing depending if you're using cloud or Jira server. So if you use Jira server, it depends on the number of users that you have in Jira. So if you have 300 persons, if you're at the 500 tier, that would be then a cost of $5,000. And if you compare that to the actual cost of the wages of all the persons that are participating in the program increment, you will find that that's only, and I'm selling a bit here, sorry about that. You will find that the price is quite small related to the effort that the program increment takes and the Scrum of Scrums takes. So I think that pricing should be defendable, easily defendable. Thanks, Rake. Mike, can you move dependency lines to go around features when there are a lot of dependencies running across many teams? My art has 12 teams. That's actually a very good question, and it's also feedback that we're getting from existing clients that are asking for that functionality. Because indeed, if you have a physical board, you you put the dependency lines, and you see that there's quite a lot of lines. And some people call it a spaghetti board because the number of dependency cords that could be quite high. And I've used it at a client as well, my previous client, and there were I think around 15 teams. So we also had the case with that we had a lot of cross-team dependencies. So what we're adding in the next release, and the development is already ongoing, is that we will add. I can maybe show you the draft of that. Just 1 second. Voila. I'm switching screens. So this is what the next release, which will come out probably next week or in 2 weeks, will look like. Not it's just a draft, of course, in terms of look and feel, but we'll add filters to the program plan so that you can easily filter out and take a look at dependencies from one team, for example, and see how a team is connected with the other teams. So that's making it easier to quickly navigate in the board. We will add other filters as well on commitments, for example, on red, amber, green, if you want to quickly see which features or stories have a red or amber indicator. That will all be possible in just 2 weeks' time. So that's a good question, Mike. Thank you. Question from Kate C. By having 8 sprints, consider 5 sprints complete earlier and the remaining sprints are of different cadence. Yes. So what is your question about that? If you would have the ability to have a different cadence of sprints, that's not supported at this moment. That you can have, for example, sprints of multiple of different timings, but we're a very enthusiastic company, and if that's important for you, it's certainly feasible to take it into account. So, Casey, you can, if that's important to you, you can come back to us later. Rakes, thank you, my pleasure. How is this being handled? Yes, Rakes, that's a good pricing, thank you. And from Mike, cool, I think it will reduce the spaghetti. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's the aim. That's a good question. Okay, we'll go back to the other presentation. Voila. So we're nicely on time. If you have other questions, you can still ask them, but just for those who have to leave very soon. If you're interested, just know that we can offer a free trial of 1 month. So I can give you the link in the chat. I've also put a link to the handouts in the chat. So the first link is the link through the handouts, and the second link that I will add is the one to the trial. If you're interested to experiment it. Mike has to leave. Okay, thank you very much, Mike. What I would like to finish with is a testimonial from previous clients I worked with. So Cindy and Laura, Cindy, release train engineer, so program manager, and Laura, a director at the business side, and both were very excited and happy to use the tool. What was important for Cindy were the metrics, this predictability, because she was getting questions from the CEO. Okay, what's the forecast looking like? Because obviously a program in a big organization is not an island on its own. There's often an alignment to be done with other programs or with, for example, the marketing at a certain release. So that was important for Cindy, and she used the metrics for that as well to not just like that, but also to be able to ask the questions to the team. And when a team was saying, okay, yeah, we think we're on track, but you look at the metrics and you see that it's very unlikely that they will make it. Cindy was able to ask questions, and that's what the tool is about. If we come back to the introduction, it's there to promote interactivity, to make it visual so that people can use it as a token, as a tool for this communication. And same for Lara, she was happy about the overview of the features that you saw as well. So she had a good view of what is being delivered and where the issues are, the risks are, and that was important for her. So thank you for that. A question from Rune, a really nice tool to support PI planning and give an overview of the program board. Thank you. You could add that if a story A in feature X has a dependency to story B, then feature X get a dependency to story B. It can be done manually, but it would be nice. Yes, that's indeed then a transactional yeah, I'm losing the word there, but indeed, yeah, I see your point. We'll take it up. That's a good suggestion indeed, to have that maybe line of dependencies then visible. So thank you, Rune, for that suggestion. Mike has to talk with his client about trials, of course. Thanks. Okay, if there are no more questions, thank you, Hendrik. You're saying thank you for the nice presentation, interesting, thanks. If there are no more questions, we can close here. I will send you the recording. I will also send you again the links to the handouts. And if there's any further questions, you can always contact me. So thanks for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day if you're joining from the United States or Canada or from the Americas. Enjoy your evening and night if you're joining from Europe. For those from Europe that join late, thanks for that. So have a good day and have a good weekend as well. Thank you very much.